Good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you are. My name is Andrew Parkinson. I'm the editor of Cruising World, and I'm here with Colby Chevalier, who is the director of product management at Imtra. Now, Imtra, as many of you probably know, specializes in a wide variety of marine products, including, but not limited to, marine lighting. Colby, thanks for joining us today.
Hi, Andrew. Thanks very much for having me. I look forward to being here.
Great. Well, let's get going. So last month, Colby and I sat down and we talked about upgrades for your sailboat that can improve your cruising lifestyle. And from that conversation, we came up with 5 easy upgrades that you can do next week. And some of these might seem small, but they can actually have a really big impact on your boat. So today in our live audience format, I want to share that conversation with you. But before we do, make sure to stick around after this short video because Colby will be taking your questions right here live on the air. So don't touch that dial and let's get started. Let's roll the tape. Hi, I'm Andrew Parkinson, editor of Cruising World, and I'm here with Colby Chevalier. He's the director of product management at Imtra. Today, we're going to be talking about upgrades for your sailboat to improve your cruising lifestyle. Now, Colby, Imtra specializes in a lot of products, lighting being one of them. Maybe tell us a little bit more about what you do at Imtra.
Sure. Yeah. So depending on the type of boat you have and your interaction with Imtra, many of you are probably familiar with working with us in your lighting projects. We also supply thrusters with the Sleipner brand, windlasses with Muir and Lofrons, and we also do a variety of specialty products, including Victron Energy, battery chargers, battery monitors, and DC to DC converters. So I look forward to chatting with you today about some of the lighting products.
Great. Well, let's get into lighting. When you're extended cruising, there's 2 very important factors that can lead to your happiness when you're cruising. That's safety and comfort. Your boat essentially is your home away from home. And with lighting, having the right lighting seems like a small thing, but it can actually make a huge difference from what we've been talking about. It really affects the cruising experience in so many ways, whether you're talking about, reading nook lighting or in the galley so you can see what you're doing, trying to fix a meal, or even in the engine room, those sort of lights that, you can see what you're doing without having to hold a flashlight in your teeth to fix a leaky oil pan or something. So really hit home to me. I was talking to a reader the other day. They said they've made a lot of upgrades on their sailboat. They added a water maker, they did the self-steering, but on a day-to-day basis, the upgrade that had the most profound effect on their cruising experience was their lighting upgrade. So Colby, lighting technology's come a long way in the last few years, starting with LED. What have you noticed in that segment, and what are you excited about?
We've been at the forefront of the LED lighting technology boom. We started with our first LED product in 2005, and it was a very simple, traditional 80 millimeter downlight. And since then, we've grown that into a broad range of products, overhead lighting, reading and bunk lighting, courtesy, engine room, underwater, you name it. We've done that in a variety of ways. We've done that with manufacturing specific products that our customers, our boat builder customers, have come to us with interest in. We've also partnered with a number of manufacturing partners in other countries to help develop products here for the US market.
So we were talking the other day about, some easy upgrades that you can do to your boat that involve lighting. One of them, start with bunk and reading lights. What's new and cool in that arena? And should we be replacing our existing bulbs with LEDs now?
Sure. Yeah. So I think probably a number of reviewers have already made the transition. They've recognized the benefits that LED provides, and power consumption is a big one and important in any sailboat, right? And then the other is safety and really getting away from the heat that's involved with some of the incandescent and halogen lights. These bunk lights are susceptible to, a pillow just getting tossed and leaning against it. And if the light were on, that could be quite dangerous. So we've already seen an adoption towards LED. And now what's really cool is, the bunk lights or reading type lights, whether you're reading, a traditional book or reading from your iPad, I think the application is still there. And one of the things that we've seen that has been very popular is it's very simple to upgrade these particular lights, whereas some of the others might be a little bit more involved. With these, you're looking at maybe 2 screws, probably just 2 wires. So whether you have a halogen or an incandescent fixture that's there, yes, you can replace, the bulbs, halogen towards an LED replacement bulb, and we'll talk about that shortly. But also replacing the whole fixture has become an easy thing to do and really has upgraded that interior with modern finishes, potentially dimming on board with the with the fixture, but it's a very easy 2-wire, whether you've got 12 or 24 volt system. Most of these LED fixtures today, some are voltage specific, but most of them are going to operate from 10 to 30 volt DC. So it's going to account for voltage drops and spikes and safely operate aboard your boat.
And talking about options in this, most people know that LED lights use less power, generate less heat than traditional light bulbs. But that's not the whole story. The other side of the equation is that light output can really render your interior in a whole new way. Is that right?
Yeah, it really can. And I think one of the things, most of your viewers are familiar probably with the LED Kelvin color scale. And one of the nice things is the 3000 Kelvin is sort of like a benchmark, a waypoint, if you will, for the warm white, what we would consider a warm white Kelvin or color temperature. And I think for a long time, LEDs were considered very harsh, very blue. It needed to come a long way to kind of advance in the color options that are available. And I think like anything else, if you haven't looked at LED lighting recently, you probably could take another look and find, wow, things have really advanced like they have in other industries as well. So not all LEDs are created equal. And certainly there are different LEDs at different price points. But one of the other nice things with and the advances that we've seen is, we've partnered with one of our brands named Prebit out of Germany, and they've come up with a really cool dim to warm feature. And one of the nice things about this is, in the old days with halogen or incandescent, when you would dim lights, it would traditionally go from a slightly higher Kelvin down to almost a 2200 Kelvin, if you want to pick a point on the color spectrum. So it would actually get warmer as you're reducing the voltage and dimming those filament bulbs. So what's old is new again in many ways. And I think Prebit came up with this technology to allow reading lamps to have the ability to start at that 3000 Kelvin and dim down and get warmer as you dim it down. So a very neat feature. Some of the other reading lamps that are available today have built-in USB chargers in the bottom of their bases. So that's another thing that is nice to have on-off, onboard dimming on the bunk lights, and also have USB charging readily accessible.
Now, moving out of the bunk areas and into the bigger rooms, the salon, the galley, all that, we're talking about overhead, dome, and down lights, a little bit larger scale, perhaps. Are we talking about LED replacement bulbs or LED fixtures? What are the differences there?
Sure. In working with a number of boat owners, that has been really helpful are things like taking pictures or bringing fixtures to us, whether that's at one of the boat shows that we're exhibiting at, or bringing or emailing in pictures of the fixtures that you have. Oftentimes we're able to identify the fixtures that are there. We might ask some qualifying questions, things like, do you just switch these lights on and off, or do you dim them currently? If you're dimming them, it's possible that we might suggest an alternative dimmer that would be paired with either LED bulbs or LED fixtures. In terms of bulbs or fixtures, new fixtures, I'd say like anything, there are pros and cons to each, right? So the LED bulbs, they are less expensive. They will help you with the power consumption and get you down to 2 to 4 watts in terms of the draw per bulb. But you're also going to see a hot spot with those. You're going to see the individual LEDs. So those are some of the things to look out for as to whether they're right for your boat or right for your fixture in terms of LED bulbs. For fixtures, if you were to move from 1-for-1, replacing the old legacy fixtures with new LED fixtures, things like recessed depth, the cutout of the existing fixture if it happens to be recess, or the overall diameter if it is a surface mount fixture. That would be another thing to consider to make sure that we make a suggestion of a new fixture that will cover the existing footprint. So some obvious things to look out are, what are the dimensions of the existing light? Are we doing any dimming? And then, of course, we're going to ask questions around whether you'd like to have switching on the fixture, or do you have wall switches somewhere elsewhere on the boat? So that will kind of give us a starting point as to help make you make some suggestions as to what might work for your interior space.
Great. So we've got, upgrade number 1, our reading lights. Upgrade 2, our salon overhead lights. Upgrade 3, let's talk about the engine room, utility type lights. What's new in that area? What are we excited about?
Sure. Engine room, utility, or under cabinet and galley. I think these are all areas where you want to have a lot of light, right? And I think these are areas that are often underlit and underutilized. If we start with under cabinet, we have a variety of fixtures that are quite narrow in their width or wider to replace some of those familiar 8-watt compact fluorescent fixtures that are very common. Oftentimes we know that, as an owner, you come down into the galley and you reach underneath the cabinet, you flick the light on. You may not actually spend much time thinking about that fixture because it's hidden underneath the cabinet there. But what you'll find, I think, and what we've heard from many boat owners is much like what you have heard, which is, wow, when I replaced that with an LED fixture, I didn't realize how much light I was missing. And I think with incandescent, fluorescent, halogen, whichever legacy bulb technology we're referring to, they're very inefficient in their design. So very little of the light being generated by those bulbs is truly exiting the fixture into your interior workspace. Same thing with the engine room utility spaces or locker spaces, anywhere where you need to have a lot of light, see what you're doing, not have that flashlight in your mouth when you're trying to work. We have a variety of whether they're square, round, linear. There's a number of different fixtures that we can work with you on for a solution. In terms of voltage, one thing to consider is just making sure there were times where there were dual voltage and dual ballast bulbs and fixtures available. So that would be one thing to note, is that most LED fixtures are going to be operating on low voltage, 10 to 30 volt DC primarily.
Interesting. And are these projects, are we talking about things that we can do ourselves? Is it better to employ someone else to come in and do it? How do we know when that line is about to be crossed, that we need to get some expert help?
Yeah, I think for things like the bunk and reading lights, traditionally you're going to see 2 wires coming out of there, 2 screws to mount the fixture, with a proper heat shrink connection. That's something that is very do-it-yourself, and I think very do-it-yourself friendly. Anytime we'll start to talk about some of the more intricate switching systems and upgrading some of the switching, that's probably where we would be interested in contacting a qualified electrician, just in the event that sometimes you remove a host of switches and you have a slew of wires back there and you're not sure which goes where. But we've worked with a number of boat owners, of course, that have some experience, have done their own projects and are more than qualified as well.
Great. And now, when you're doing these lighting installations, one of the after effects is the trim, right? We're looking at the overall look and feel of it. How do I know what type of switching or brand I have in my boat? What should I be thinking about when I want to replace switching cover plates?
Like the fixtures, we're starting to see more and more of a trend where people are either looking to upgrade their fixtures from a brass or a gold potentially to upgrading everything to a polished chrome or maybe a brushed chrome or brushed nickel finish. And that could be for the light fixtures, the bunk lights, the overhead lights, but also the decorative trim around the switching systems that you might have installed on the boat. And VMAR is a very popular brand here in the US and with most boat manufacturers. And they have a variety of different series within the VMAR umbrella that they have launched over the many decades that they've been supplying switches. And what I'm referring to is a modular type switching system where you have a decorative cover plate and then behind that a mounting frame that mounts to the bulkhead. And then, of course, your corresponding switches or outlets that snap into that mounting frame. And then it all goes together and has a nice finished look to it. What we've been able to do is work with many boat owners that have been able to identify by removing the cover plate with a small flathead screwdriver without damaging the current plate. And on the back, it'll say, in this case, if it's made by VMAR, it'll say VMAR. It might say, 8000 series was a very popular switching range that they offered. Idea series is another one that many of your viewers would probably be familiar with. And what's nice is you can just replace the cover plate only. So if it's looking a little tarnished, if it's under a portal and it's seen some weather over time, those are things that we can easily upgrade and keep your existing switches there.
Great. And our final upgrade of the day, new USB chargers and outlets. So this is a topic that, me being in media, something I can really relate to. When I'm on a boat, I'm always searching for, available USB chargers, something trying to keep my devices charged. It can be a challenge sometimes. And, a lot of boats currently still have a cigarette lighter or 12-volt plug where you have to plug in an adapter and all that, but that's not really ideal. A better option are these dedicated dual USB sockets and things like that are coming out. What are the most popular USB type chargers out there now? How do I install them? Can I do it myself?
Yeah, to your point, I think there are a number of USA three-prong outlets that are out there already. And so in those cases, you can either replace the outlets one for one, or you can, since the power is already run right there, what's nice is VMAR has 120 volt built-in USB charger. So it has the built-in 5-volt charger that you need to charge the device. And it will snap right into its place, assuming it's from the same series by VMAR in this case. But you can replace those outlets for USB chargers one for one, which makes things very easy from an upgrade standpoint. If, let's say, you have a 12-volt cigarette type charger lighter, or you are looking to strictly say, you know what, I don't have 120 volt there at that location, but I want to have a USB charger. There are also USB chargers available that we pair with a DC to DC converter, and you'll just have 2 wires coming out of that. And you can wire that right to 12 volt or 24 volt and still have USB charging right there at the location that you'd like. And then depending on the series by VMAR, most of them have, everyone is familiar, I think, with the A-type USB charger, and C-type is what most people are starting to transition to, I think, with most of their devices. So those are available as well. For those that still have maybe a little bit of both, there are some series within VMAR that offer A plus C all within the same modular charger. So that's convenient if you have some devices that are still working on the type A charger. So there's a nice wide variety of USB chargers available. And we've been working with a number of boat owners from an aftermarket refit standpoint to help them with finding the right solution.
That's great, Colby. Well, thank you for all that. It's been very educational. And, there you have it. 5 easy upgrades in terms of lighting you can make on your boat, this week that'll make a huge impact on your cruising lifestyle. It's a lot to think about, Colby. How can our viewers learn more about some of the stuff we've been talking about today, some of the options out there for upgrading their lighting?
So there are a number of upgrades, lighting and other products as well, that boat owners can entertain. And I think one of the things that we've really focused on in the last few years is developing a center or a place where people can find out on their own, do their own research, decide what's right for them and their boat. The Imtra Learning Center is a great resource where we have a full-time content manager that just answers those types of questions that you might Google and have questions about. And we're, of course, available anytime, whether you have questions on the types of projects that you're looking to refit. We also have a location called Smoother Sailing with Imtra on Cruising World's website, where we've mirrored some of these content pieces and questions that boat owners commonly have, so they can, on their own, find out the answers that they're looking for.
Great, Colby. Well, thanks for your time today, and thank you to everyone for joining in.
Thank you, Andrew. It was a pleasure. Thanks very much.
Thanks, everyone, and we are back. I hope you enjoyed that segment. Colby, wow, it seems like the technology has really come a long way in terms of lighting. And the thing that really, gets me, we just replaced the lights in our kitchen at home, a couple of weeks ago. And just the difference that, the new plates, the new switches, everything had on that room had a major effect. So when you think about it in terms of a boat, which is much smaller spaces, it's really cool what you can do with just a few small upgrades.
It really is. Yeah, I think one of the things that's nice about these upgrades is how much it improves your interior space, which I touched on. And I think one of those things that, you don't know until you know. And the feedback we've heard from a number of boat owners is that once they've made that leap, they've really seen like, wow, it really is a different interior space now.
So Colby, you ready to take some questions?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So for those of you who are joined halfway through or are new to Zoom, it's very easy. We're going to do a live Zoom Q&A chat here. If you're not familiar with Zoom Q&A, it's so simple. Here's how to ask your question. You just simply look at the bottom of your screen. You have to wiggle your mouse to get the toggle up and do that. There's a Q&A button down there. You click that and a screen will pop up. You just simply type in your question, hit send, and we'll get it and we'll read it live here. And Colby will do his best to answer it. So you guys go ahead. Feel free to send your questions in starting now. And in the meantime, we've got a couple of questions that came in earlier in the mail-in ballot period. So if you'd like, we can get started with those. Colby, you ready?
Sounds good. Thanks.
Okay. Question number 1, what if I installed LED lights in my boat and they're flickering? Why would this be happening?
Yeah, this is a common question that we work on with customers. Usually what happens there is someone has purchased an LED bulb or a fixture, they've installed it, and it's not compatible with the current dimmer that may be hidden behind the bulkhead or controlled with the switch aboard the boat. it's no different than, in the early days when you'd go to Home Depot and buy LED bulbs, and then your slide dimmer in the kitchen would have the bulbs flicker below a certain percentage. So most LEDs out there are in fact dimmable. It's just super important to make sure that you're pairing the fixture, the LED fixture, with a compatible dimmer so that you get that smooth range that you're looking for throughout the life. One of the things that we try and do is we have readily available a dimmer compatibility chart for all of our fixtures so that people can kind of say, well, if I have this fixture, which dimmer do I need? If I have that fixture, is it a different dimmer? Because sometimes it could be for very good reason in the design of the fixture. So like anything, contact the manufacturer, ask lots of questions, ask if they're dimmable. If they are, how does that manufacturer recommend that you dim the LED fixtures? And usually people that have been doing it for a while, they'll have a good sense as to direct you to the right dimmer so that you don't have that flickering issue.
Great. Thanks for that, Kobe. We got a bunch of questions popping up here in the Q&A. Let's move on to these. First one here, we sort of touched on it in the video. This one came up a little bit earlier on, but do they have dimmable LEDs?
Yes. So most LEDs are dimmable. I think in the early days, there were some that were strictly on-off only, but not to get into too many of the technical details, but most of the LEDs today will dim on a PWM or a pulse width modulation signal. We've seen, some of our earlier fixtures, some of your viewers may be familiar with our 4-wire LED fixtures. We've seen a transition over to 2 wires, so just your red and black right to your 12 or 24 volt DC. So it makes it very refit friendly, retrofit friendly for existing fixtures that are out there. However, as I mentioned, the key thing there is to make sure that you're pairing something dimmer and lights together so that you're happy with the outcome. The last thing we want to see happen, of course, is that someone plugs in, invest the time and the money in researching in new LED fixtures, plugs them in and goes, oh, I wonder why they're underperforming. So creating that pairing between the dimmer modules that may be hidden behind the scenes and the light fixtures is critical.
Great. And thanks for that question. That was from MC Fiala. Moving on to Sarah Rudolph asked a question. She says, I like the look of the VMAR USB outlets. What is the part number for the DC-DC version? All I found before are the VMAR USB outlets that are AC power input.
Yes. So it depends on the series, right? So I can say that a VMAR Idea series, if you're looking for the gray, is on our website. You'll see part number VM16368, and that part number will take you to a Type A USB charger, and that's just going to be a pass-through. And then over to the right, you'll see a related products section where it has the DC to DC converter that you would pair with that pass-through low voltage charger. And then if you have a different series from VMAR, I'd recommend you reach out to us offline. You can reach out to me or any one of us here at Imtra, and we'd be happy to help.
Great, thanks. Next question is from Michael. He asks, pros and cons of using solid metal fixtures versus dimmable frosted glass lamps to light a main salon. Colby, what's your take?
Sure. So if we're talking about the frosted lens of the fixture, certainly that can cut down on the overall output. Most of the fixtures, when we're talking about purpose-built LED fixtures, most of them are designed in such a way that their frosting of the lens, whether it's a dome fixture or a recessed pocketed type light, they're designed in such a way that they're hiding some of the internal components in a good way. So aesthetically, when they're off, it looks very clean. When it's on, you're not cutting down enormously on the amount of light output, but you're also giving that clean aesthetic look. If you're talking about LED bulbs, that might be a little bit different. Sometimes there are fixtures that have open air, no lens, and have just a bulb that's coming through there. In that case, it might be a little bit different, right? You're starting to see the individual diodes on the bulb. However, you are allowing more light to exit the fixture. So it's a difficult question to answer because so many of the fixtures are so unique. One of the things we talked about in the recording was, and one of the things that we talk about in our Learning Center also, is we have a checklist, a 7-point checklist of things to look for when you're looking to retrofit your LED lighting. And it talks about things like the voltage, of course, the power supply, but things like cutout, overall diameter, making sure that we're covering the existing footprint of existing lights. Some of those things are super important to make sure that we're matching up a fixture for you that is going to be the best long-term solution for the boat. So I hope I answered that question, but if I didn't, feel free to reach out to me anytime and I can get into the specifics for you.
And once again, just a reminder, if you'd like to ask a question, please feel free. The Q&A button at the bottom of your screen, click it, type it in, and we'll see it. In the meantime, we'll move on to some other questions that have come in. Our next question is from Bob. And this question sort of becomes a two-part question because I know the technology being around for a little bit longer, like it has with LED and all that. My question, based on Bob's question, is: have costs come down for LEDs? I'll let you answer that one, and then we'll move on to Bob's question.
Yeah, certainly. That's probably one of the more common questions in my 17 years at Imtra that I've heard at the shows. And the short answer is yes. Like anything, you look at TVs or any other technology that's out there, the costs have come down for them. I think initially, when LEDs first came on the market, you started to get more lumens, more light output, a better quality fixture for about the same price. What we're starting to see now are costs coming down as more and more adopters are out there. So, to give you an example, I think our first light fixture was somewhere in the neighborhood of, $195 retail. And that was 15 years ago or so. And you're starting to see retail prices in the $58 to $75, $85 range for the fixtures. So it varies based on, how many different LED colors are coming out of the fixture. Is it dimmable? What's the physical size of it? What's required from a heat sinking standpoint to make sure that the LED engine, if you will, is running at the right temperature and will last for a long time for you. So a lot of different factors that go into what a LED light might cost. But I think high level, you can assume that costs have come down both for fixtures and for LED replacement bulbs.
And we're talking about marine products. You look around, when you're looking to purchase, doing your research, prices can fluctuate a little bit. What are some reasons for fluctuations in prices there? Is it a quality thing, or is there some benefit to, spending a little bit more for a product? This is to address Bob's question here.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah. So certainly if you're looking at LED replacement bulbs and keeping fixtures that you have for whatever reason that may be, you may like that fixture, you may like the finish. It may be something that's no longer available somewhere else, but it just fits the space really well. LED bulbs, no doubt, you're going to be spending anywhere from, $10 to $20, maybe $25, depending on what the bulb is trying to do. But you're certainly seeing costs continue to come down when it comes to the fixtures. I think to your point about what could influence things like cost of a fixture, I think it's super important to look at the different components that go into it. Things like, what is the lens material? What is the trim ring? Is it plastic? Is it metal? Is it stainless steel? What are you looking for from a raw material standpoint of it? The housing, of the fixture. When you spin it around, do you see a heat sink that's there that's either in aluminum, or now a lot of the LED fixtures out there have a thermal plastic heat conductive material used on the back of the housing. So, looking at the quality of the fixture certainly determines some of the price points. I think there's a variety of LED manufacturers out there in the marine and non-marine space. And like anything, you can find things that are very premium, high quality. And as mentioned in the recording, I think not all LEDs are considered equal or the same. And I think that's true when you look at the technology that's out there. You can certainly find low cost LED lights out there as well. But is it going to give you the longevity that you're looking for? I think that's one of the disparities that we've seen in LED lighting over the years.
Thanks, Colby. Our next question is from Joyce. And Joyce wants to know, what is the access to purchasing from Imtra for Canadian customers? Do you participate in the Toronto International Boat Show, for instance?
Yeah, great question. Yes, we do participate in the Toronto show. We will be exhibiting there. We will have a dealer located on our stand, which you can purchase the products from there during the show if you'd like. And we also are able to ship from Canada directly through our website.
Great, Joyce. Hope that answers your question. Going back to the mail-in ballots here, I've got another one from Bob. He asks, will I have more or less light output from what I'm used to if I change to LED?
Yeah, good question. Comes up often. The short answer is it depends. I think if you're taking out a 10 watt, let's say, incandescent halogen bulb, you're going to have an LED replacement bulb, certainly a fixture that will meet or exceed that light output. I think initially there was a time a long time ago where you would take out older, say 20 watt halogen fixtures, and you might be compromising light output by going to LED. That's probably ancient history at this point. I think we're actually on the other end of the spectrum now, where LED lights almost need to be dimmable, to the point where so much of the light generated by these, especially the high quality fixtures, so much of that light is being focused and generated straight through the fixture into your interior space. And I think sometimes it can be overwhelming. And so the LEDs now are much more powerful. The LED chips that are being powered behind the lenses that you see are significantly smaller. So the footprint has changed, the light output has increased, and 9 times out of 10, you're not going to see a compromise in light output by upgrading to LED.
Great. Just once again, just a reminder, if you'd like to ask a question, feel free to click the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. Window will pop up, just type in your question and we will get it and ask Colby live. As we start to wind down here, I've got another question here that came in from Peter. Peter wants to know, if I'm cruising in the Caribbean or somewhere else outside of North America, will I have any trouble finding suitable LED replacement bulbs?
Yeah, so no, they're available. We have a number of South Florida dealers that stock LED replacement bulbs where they're regularly available. Anywhere outside of the US, of course, we can ship directly from our website, imtra.com, and we'll ship worldwide.
Well, Colby, this has been very informational. And I do want to remind our viewers that the full recording of this webinar will be up on the Smoother Sailing with Imtra Hub on our website at cruisingworld.com. That'll be up for a long time. So feel free to go back anytime and take some more notes if you like, or refer it to a friend. Again, this is 5 easy lighting upgrades for your sailboat. Colby, where can our audience go to learn more or to follow up?
Sure. Yeah. So we have, of course, the intralearningcenter.com is a popular place where we've added videos and content pieces and the 7-point checklist and a number of things that people would just be interested in searching but want to learn more on their own time. Of course, everyone here at Imtra, we have outside sales team, we have an inside support customer service desk. We pride ourselves on being available at any time. So anytime there's any questions, we'd love to walk through the project that you may have. And we hope that we can be of assistance for you.
That's great. Well, Colby, I want to thank you and Imtra for being here today and talking about these great upgrades. Thanks for taking the time.
Very good, Andrew. Thank you very much for having me.
And to our audience, thank you for joining us. I hope you found this information useful. There's certainly a lot out there to think about. So go do your homework and hopefully have some happy upgrades on your boat here coming soon. So thanks again for joining us, and we will see you on the water.